Now we have a situation, 50, 60% of the population believe we're not alone in the universe. That we have done. There are millions of people doing CE5 contact, having peaceful contact, but the world is still a basket case because it's still dependent on the black curse of the old energy system from the 1800s. Now, I think the solution is sitting there for us, but it's costly. You know, we crowdfunded our documentaries, we crowdfunded the app, we crowdfunded the disclosure project. We have no office or staff, as you know. 100% of these proceeds go in to further the work, and we would like to see it further reach the point where we could actually develop these technologies. But that we're talking about is tens of millions of dollars. You're not going to develop a high energy physics lab for a few $100,000. One workstation is $500,000 to $1 million using the kind of equipment you need. So now you would think in an age of high-tech Silicon Valley unicorns, billion-dollar startups doing frivolity and IPOs behind, you know, things like TikTok or whatever, bringing in, you know, untold billions, that wouldn't be so hard, but nobody has wanted to do it yet. Now, I'm making an appeal tonight. People need to do it. And we can prove that these technologies exist. Who wants to fund them? That is an act of courage because it's an act of defiance. I mean, just like the Ukrainian people are trying to defy this, you know, brutal invasion. The people of the world need to unite in an act of peaceful defiance of the current world order of petro-Nazis. Fascism based on the current energy system. And I think that when you think about this, I mean, people new to this who may be just now watching this YouTube channel, you know, look at this thing they call the Tic Tac that our Navy jets. I just had a long conversation with the pilot of that jet fighter that chased, you know, that Tic Tac off the coast of California some years ago in the early 2000s. And that thing was moving up, down, vertical, no means of propulsion, no jets, no rockets. They had infrared on it, no heat source like you get from something being burned. It's electromagnetic field propulsion. And guess what? Those have been developed since before I was born. That thing flying around, when we mastered gravity control, the top scientist at the Naval Research Lab was in the, quote, vault and saw the unredacted document that stated that that was mastered in October of 1954. So now we're talking, you know, 68 years ago. And so you think, okay, 2/3 of a century later, we still are using rockets, jets, cars, coal, gas, and oil burning power plants, nuclear power, which is very dangerous. And yes, we have 20% of our electricity in the United States from hydroelectric, that's 7.5%, and wind and solar. The problem is, you know, if you have say a Tesla car or an electric car, and you know, we have two that are plug-in electric hybrids. That energy is coming out of a coal-fired and gas-fired power grid, except for maybe 19-20% of that energy. So people think that when you plug in your electric car, it's magically getting charged from the ether. No, it's from a very polluting source. And the lithium-ion batteries, the hundreds of pounds of lithium-ion batteries, the pollution that's created by manufacturing those is enormous. Toxic waste. So that, you know, it makes people feel good, Pat, but it's not the solution. My solar farm, it's great. I'm trying to help. It's not the ultimate solution. We know what the solution is. But when the vice president, Al Gore, and Al Gore did an Inconvenient Truth and is this great champion of the environment, but guess what? Think about the enormous hypocrisy of being the vice president of the United States, receiving this information, this positive proof of these technologies existing. But because it's too dangerous to stick your neck out, you turn your back on it, and then you just bloviate for decades about the problem but refuse to endorse the solutions. And that's true of people on the left, the right, the middle, the whole thing. So this is something that I speak of with authority because I've had taken the meetings with people like this around the world. And I understand the fear. I do. I mean, I understand the lethal threats that are made. I've had them. I understand the people who've been killed. I have people on my team that have been assassinated. I've almost been assassinated. But, you have now, a situation where 8 billion people's lives hang in the balance, not only from the risk of thermonuclear war, but of environmental collapse. And so I think we have to grow up and we have to decide that as a people, we're going to come together and manifest the courage that obviously unfortunately, our leaders lack. So this is where I am 100% nonpartisan and apolitical, because I have dealt with people on all sides of the aisle in multiple countries, and none of them want to do the right thing because it's dangerous, and it is dangerous. And I had a person with an MBA say to me once, your problem is you're not willing you tell the truth about the risks and the benefits. I said, well, I'm a doctor. You always disclose what the benefits and the risks are, or you're unethical, if not assaulting a patient. And he says, yes, but that's not how business works. You just sort of like brush over the risk and blow up the benefits. No, I mean, it's clearly you have to be honest about this because people's lives are in the balance here. And I understand that, all the hundreds of people who come to me with top secret documents and information, they are in mortal danger and they are heroes. But we're not going to find that kind of uncommon courage, as it's called, at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue under any president I've dealt with since Clinton. If there's a member of Congress that has that kind of courage, please introduce them to us. I'm in Washington every week, or someone in some other government. In the meanwhile, I wouldn't bet the farm on it. I think we, the people, have got to unite, bring up the definitive solutions, which we have been extant in existence since before you and I were born, and we're not spring chickens, honey. So I think that's what we have to do. And I think that when you look at how these UFOs move, the man-made ones and the ET ones, those technologies are very elegant because they're electromagnetic field propulsion. And they're pulling energy from so-called 0 point, but through what's called the quantum vacuum. I'm not going to get into the physics of this too far. And then you take it to another level and you can go from point A to B in space, like that, almost like a teleportation. Well, it is. But just the what I call level 1 advanced technology would be something that sits in your house like your heat pump. It runs your house with no energy costs and no pollution. That is what can be created now and distributed. And I had a conversation with the head of the Air Force, a colonel in charge of future technologies, which is a euphemism for this kind of thing. They call them future when they already have it, by the way. But remember the doublespeak of military and intelligence people. I should do a whole workshop on counterintelligence and doublespeak in these communities. But they go to a place called the Farm out here in Virginia to learn how to professionally lie about all this. I know people have been there. I go by it every time I go into DC from my house here. And what's interesting is that he said to me, he says, it's too early to bring out the things that fly because that can be turned into a missile delivery system, i.e. a man-made UFO. But yeah, the ones that would run your car or house, those, we think would be fine if you brought those out. But he didn't speak for this group of psychopaths, sociopaths that are the uber oligarchs of the planet running the whole petrodollar and oil and macroeconomic system. They do not want that out because they know they're going to go the way of all flesh, because the power they have, literally the physical power, but then the figurative power they have would slip through their fingers like grains of sand. And they know it, because then every village in Africa has free energy and electrification, refrigeration. Even the deserts will bloom, as it says. in scriptures, because you can then have water delivered. Now, one of the things that's coming out, some of you have seen this, and people think it's a film that I did. It's not. It's called Above Top Secret. And it's a nod also to the great book that Timothy Good wrote back in the 80s, I believe it was, called Above Top Secret. But it's about these technologies, and it's coming out April 5th. It's exciting because it's coming out 3 days before the April conference we're doing in Scottsdale, which is going to be about all our community coming together, and meditation and enlightenment and praying for peace, but also acting and creating peace with humans and ETs, but also on Earth. And we're going to do a big meditation and go around the world with thousands of people online. I hope millions of people online, and everyone there creating and seeing through higher consciousness the world transitioning very quickly off the path it's on now onto this path of enlightenment and peace on Earth and in space, and peaceful energy.